So, what's quite exciting is we have the original demo here that you did with Glenn, with Alanis.
Yes.
You played it a minute ago, and it's the same vocal. The vocal didn't change.
Yeah.
Every inflection's on there. I'd love to listen to the elements. Tell me a bit about the recording. Obviously, what remained, what they kept of the original demo would be really exciting.
It was a most interesting record, and one of the reasons I'm so happy to have been a part of it is because it was really one of those what's right and what's wrong with the music business. Okay, she had been, and I always loved the moniker. She was the Paula Abdul of Canada.
Well, because she was the pop star of Canada.
Yeah, she was a pop star. Well, from what I was told, they had put this whole package together, and they were just looking for somebody that they could put in the middle, and you're now going to be the star of our show. You know, okay, and she got the gig, and it wasn't anything, she wasn't really that into it. It wasn't the kind of, so when she came to LA to do something, it was like, it has to be so far from what I was doing there, you know?
Right.
And she came to LA and had, from what I understand, she went around and wrote with a lot of different people, but nothing really kind of clicked. And she was with MCA Canada, okay? So they called over to the office and said, hey, she's got one more day in town. Can we get together with some of your writers? So she came over to Glenn's house, and unless I don't quite, you know, misremembering, that's the new term.
Yeah.
It seems to me that they did Ironic and You Ought to Know that first day.
Oh wow!
Just sat down and started writing, and it was one of those things where Glenn and I both knew, as did the other people at MCA, that she was the real thing. She was a real artist. I mean, no one was going, this is going to be huge. This is going to be the biggest record. No, we have a real artist here, right? So they started writing songs, and in our...
I must pause you for a second, because that's a really, really good point. When something's real, you're not worried about like the commerciality of something, as Dr. John would say. I love that phrase.
Yes.
You literally are just thinking, this is real. I want to get behind it. I want this to be great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really, there was no thought about what's going to happen with her done, because we weren't really. It wasn't like, oh, we're making a record. No, we're cutting songs. We were in our MCA Music demo mode. Although when I started at MCA, one of the things that Leeds Levy, the president, said to me is, we don't cut demos. We make unfinished masters. Okay?
Nice.
Which meant he didn't want me cutting any corners. Because we did a lot of records with the Pointer Sisters, and they used to buy our masters and just overdub them, and there was the record. So I wound up on like 4 or 5 Pointer Sisters records because they were buying our masters, and then that's how I started working with Richard Perry. So Glenn and I had a long relationship. We did a lot of R&B. We did Evelyn King, Thelma Houston, Teddy Pendergrass, Sam Harris, the Pointer Sisters. I'm trying to think of some of the, but a lot of R&B. Right.
Wonderful.
I remember working with Teddy Pendergrass. One of the great things Teddy said to me one time, we're talking about fixing something because it's slightly out of tune. And Teddy said, man, it feels great. He goes, and you know what? I'll take performance over pitch any day.
Yeah.
And I
absolutely.
went, sure. Yeah.
Before we listen to the tracks, what was this recorded on? And give us a little idea of the format, the studio. Okay. I know there's a lot of talk at the time that the album was done on ADATs.
Well, it started on analog tape because we were cutting a lot of the basic tracks at MCA, and that's what we had there. We had a beautiful 2-inch 16 track that was 2-inch 16 is still.
It was
I get goosebumps just thinking. It was an MCI.
MCI, okay, great.
Really a nice machine, maintained by our good friend Charlie Bolus, who always, everything worked impeccably. But it just had this sound to it. So we did that, but Glenn's home studio was ADATs. And that's where we kind of made the conversion over to ADATs.
So if he had a tape machine, why was he going to ADATs? What was his...
Because track count, he only had a 16-track machine.
Oh, okay? I see.
And we had kind of filled the machine up, and he's one of the guys that doesn't like to go over anything. So we'll transfer what we're going to keep to a new piece of tape and put the other one away. You know, kind of like the old EMI thing, where that's that's how they did Love, because they never threw anything away. That's how they were able to come up with all those pieces.
So, was the vocal done? Well, you know what? Let's listen to some stuff. Let's play the track.
Okay. Now, this is not really a mix here. This is just me pushing things up.
That's okay.
He's got this cool little loop. Now, I will take a guess that it's Basil Fung on guitars, and the organ is probably Ben Montench from Petty's band.
Right.
Yeah, that was somebody Glenn was using a lot. The
Ben
guy
was
can
amazing.
play a B3 like nobody.
And isn't it ironic? Don't you think? It's like rain.
There's not even a drum fill on it. It's just a little. I think this may be the guitar that's on there. There's also this little kind of, you got these little things that are coming in and out. So it's not an overly complex track with stuff in it. It's just that right now the drums are broken out in kind of a bigger thing, so it's got a little loop and then other elements that do the drum fill, and then sort of just like a, you know, kind of a loop here, right? So it's not really a drum track. This is what they did and went in and replaced
the drum
with some of the drums.
So the vocal, love the sound of the vocal.
And who would have thought it figured?
What's your recollection of the mic and?
Oh, I know exactly what it is.
Oh, okay.
Glenn had, there was at this time, there were studios that were starting to go out of business, right? And there was this network in town, so-and-so's going out of business. Let's go over and go through their mic collection, right? So there were guys, Alan Sides was one of the guys who was out there buying up all these mics.
Sure.
And somehow Glenn got the call before Alan did. And he got to the studio and he got a beautiful 47.
Oh, so it's a 47.
It's a 47. He also got 249s. He got some LA2As. So it's a 47 through an LA2A. Through probably a GML EQ more than like, because I think I think he had the GML at the time. I don't think the vocals were cut at MCA. I think they were cut at Glenn's studio. I think all the vocals were cut at his studio. She might have done a couple of, because we didn't have at MCA, we weren't able to record the band and have an ISO booth for the vocal. So she might have been kind of standing in the room with the band. Right. I don't remember us having anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that these were done at his house. So it would have been the Euphonics mic pre.
Oh, so Euphonics mic pre.
Yeah, it had been plugged into the Euphonics and then through that. Because at that time that we were doing this, he had just finished his lovely second story on his garage home studio that was just lovely. And that's when I talked him into getting the Euphonics.
Nice.
Which was a lot of fun, yeah.
So this is the Euphonics, LA2A, the U47, and then some GML EQ. What would you have done?
Probably, it probably would have been just some little rollout rumble, just some low end,
some
something
high pass.
I might have been able to accomplish with a filter, but considering the pristine, gorgeous electronics that were inside the GML, I go, well, instead of going through some cheap filter, I'm going to use this gorgeous piece of equipment.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite. That's one of the few pieces in my studio that if I got to the point where I had to start selling something, that would be dead last.
Right.
Who will pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
Nice.
Yeah.
What now? Can I listen to Benmont? I want to listen to that organ.
Oh, yeah.
So how was this recorded?
This would have been probably two mics, two small cap condensers on the top, probably 451s or 451s or KM84s, and probably either an RE20 or a Beta 52 for the woofer.
Right.
So two of them like that, and the one at the bottom, and then just put in stereo. You know?
Did this survive into the final mix?
I couldn't see it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And the thing with the B3, and that's funny because in class this week, I was talking about different keyboards, and one of the things that we talked about was the B3. And the thing is with the B3, you have piano players, you have keyboard players, and you have B3 players.
Sure.
And just because a guy can play the piano, and Benmont is amazing, but he keeps saying he doesn't really know. He just kind of plays it. He kept calling himself a savant because he goes, I'm not even sure what I'm doing. I go, well, keep doing it, man.
No, I understand. A great B3 player can hold down 2 or 3 fingers and then just play drawbars.
Yeah.
And just change a finger every now and then.
Yeah. Now, he's not playing bass peds on this. He's just doing that. But still, you're working the manuals, you're pulling the drawbars, you're working the Leslie. It's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. And this would have been a genuine B3 Leslie.
He's featured quite heavily because we just did a breakdown of Don't Do Me Like That with, and of course, Ben Mons.
Yeah.
And one of the conversations there is that he came up to a chorus and he forgot to turn on the Leslie. He didn't want to turn it on in the middle of the Leslie. So when Shelley mixed it, he had to come up with this weird kind of technique to make it sound like
it was there.
It was a Leslie, yeah. Just kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it looks like a lot of the stuff survived, though. So what else?
Well, what I'm thinking is that I'm pretty sure that these are the original acoustic guitars because they sound very much like it. Again, I know they replaced the bass and the drummer on here. And I don't know whether this was the one that, I don't know if this is the one that Flea's on playing bass. I think
Flea's on You Ought to Know, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only one. I mean, you know, Glenn is one of these kind of guys that, you know, until he's satisfied with something, he's going to go back and keep doing stuff. And like in the case of the song Perfect, right? They recorded that in the afternoon. And our usual thing was while they were doing the songwriting part of it is I would go over to Glenn's house, get him set up, and I would leave. Right, because they're just the Euphonics is such a cool board that I could set him up so he could mix and do all the other stuff, and so they would usually work, and then if they got something, they would call me later on and come down and do a quick rough on it. And I got a call about midnight, and I went down and mixed the song Perfect, and I should use the word mix in its most loose definition. I did a blend of what they had recorded, and so when it came time to like do the final mixes, they hired a couple of big name mixers and weren't happy with it. And what they used was that little mix that I did. Right. And that's the one that's
the energy
on the record.
was the energy. It was right. Yeah.
It taught me a very valuable lesson. You never know where your recordings are going to wind up. Sure. So every time you put something in record, make sure it's what you want it to be. Because that album got every Grammy nod in every category except engineering, and I agree with them. I don't, and please forgive me when I say this, I don't think it's a well-engineered record. Right? It could have been a lot better because we were just, okay, that's great, move on, go ahead, you know. Right. But I think that's all part of it. That's why it's that way.
Half the records we love, the engineering isn't necessarily the best, but the performances are amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I teach very heavily, right? I always ask my students, what's the main job of a recording engineer? And I get things like, oh, to make stuff sound good, to do a good mix. And all good answers, but all very subjective. What's a good mix, right? Yeah. So I tell them the main job of a recording engineer is to capture a performance, right? So don't make the performer wait for you to go, well, give me a chair. I want to go through 18 microphones and I'm going to try a bunch of, it's like, no, man, make a decision, get to work, catch that magic. You know, I'm a huge fan of Take One. I mean, I don't hit play without hitting record.
Sure.
Because it's like
ABR, always being
record. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of people, and Glenn was one of them, who didn't really believe in Take One. Right? I've captured some incredible magic on Take One because I don't go, okay, let's record. I just go, hey, let's run it down. Boom, play and record.
Dave Jordan told me when he did the She's the Boss album, the Mick Jagger solo album, that Jeff Beck played the solos on the record, all phenomenal solos. And I try to remember, I think it was Nile Rodgers. I think Nile Rodgers was the producer on the track. Turned to Dave, like on the first day that Jeff comes in and says, he's going to record a solo. Take one, then move on to another track and let him keep doing solo after solo and solo, and then eventually play him take one again. Yeah. And so that's what they did. Does a solo, of course, is absolutely amazing. He then quickly, puts him onto another track, keeps doing, I can get better. And like an hour later, they're on takes 11 or 12 or whatever. And I'm sure it's all amazing.
Yeah.
And then Niall says to Jeff, let me just play you, we kept take one just because we did. Plays it back, and Jeff Beck's like, Wow, that's great. Let's go with that one.
That one, yeah. But I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I don't know why people can't wrap their head around take one.
I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Especially when you're an amazing musician or an amazing singer. Session players have this problem. The best session players I work with, I'm about 4 or 5 takes in. Now it's suddenly really perfect.
Yeah.
And really passionless.
Yeah.
You know, but there was something, a bit of a fight with that fill. Boom.
Yeah.
It was a little too fast, a little too, which makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like beat detecting Keith Moon?
Jeez.
I mean, John Bonham, you could argue, because his groove is phenomenal.
I don't know if I could imagine recording Keith Moon.
But like Bonham had a groove and a feel that was like was so amazing. Keith Moon was so over the place with the push and pull, but it made it exciting.
Yeah. I mean, the guy couldn't go half a bar without playing a fill.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, he didn't have a pedal on his hi-hat.
Right.
Because he had the double bass drum.
Well, plus, I thought for the longest time he just had a crash cymbal.
He did that as well. But his hi-hat was just a sloshy thing. But he didn't play it very often. So it didn't matter, you know. But like, you know, when you work with guys like John Robinson, for instance, drummer, who just recently was named most recorded drummer in history, 2 takes. 2 takes with John. Sure. John, you know, he's like, you okay, I'll play another one if you want it, you know. And it's, you know, the second take is usually just for coverage, you know. Because
you're making me think of, I did something, an odd time, odd meter, tempo changing, like 7-minute, crazy composer's track a couple of years ago with Vinnie Carluta.
Right, oh yeah.
And we played him the demo, and he had a chart, and he looked at the chart and went, "It's wrong." And we're like, the composer's in the room. So then we play the demo down and he rewrites the chart in real time. And then he goes in and plays, and he's the only person that doesn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
And it's like a 7-minute odd meter, tempo changing, insane piece of music.
Yeah.
So there's just, there's some guys and girls.
You know, I tell my students, there's only one problem with working with great players. And that's that you don't get to spend very much time with them. Because they come in and do their gig, and they're gone. I'll tell you an interesting story. I won't mention the artist's name because I don't really ever know what happened to it. But anyways, we were working with this girl artist, and it was the guys. It was Randy Kerber on piano. It was Alex Acuna on percussion. I think it was Vinny on drums. Neil Steubenhaus on bass. You know, the big guys, right? So we finished the first day of tracking, and we've cut maybe 2 songs. I might have had a part of a third, right? So it's the end, and everybody's leaving. Okay, everybody's leaving. And I look out in the studio, and the artist is sitting at the piano like this. And I said to Glenn, "This doesn't look good," right? He goes, "Oh, I better go out and talk." So he goes out to talk to her, and I would never eavesdrop on a conversation. Right? There's live microphones all over the place. Something told me you should listen to this conversation. So I just left the mic open. Nobody else in control but me. The conversation was, she couldn't understand how do we have 2 songs cut? These guys don't know me. They don't know my music. They don't understand what I'm all about. How could they have come in here and cut one of my tracks? And he had to explain to her, that's why these guys get paid what they do, because they listen to the tracks. What is it? Well, once she got her in here and got her calmed down, she fell in love with it. But she just couldn't wrap her. They don't even know me. It's like, yeah, but they know the music.
Well, thank you ever so much.
Good. Thank you.
I really appreciate
it. If any time come back, we have wonderful facilities here.
We will. Yeah. We'll come back and do a tour.
Absolutely.
So leave a bunch of comments and questions below. Maybe I'll throw you onto the bus and you can answer some.
That's what the bus is for.
There you go. Marvelous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.